Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
We're keeping a watch on media. Let's go to a panel up on stage at the theater here at Screentime. Our Lucas Shaw talking with Brian Roberts, CEO and chairman of Comcast NBCUniversal.
Well, look, you have, we're not going to go there right away, but you have earnings in a few months. You can just wipe that clean, right? I want to start just with news of the moment, because you guys have a pretty big business in Florida, which I believe has been affected by the hurricane down there. So is everything fine at the parks?
Thanks for starting there. Well, theme park, great news for that is we'll be open tomorrow and maybe even tonight with City Walk. We also are the cable company right in Fort Myers and right where the storm came in. So a lot of devastation, as we all have witnessed. And fortunately, we have a culture, probably 1,000 people working on it today. We'll have people, as soon as power's back, we'll be back. Just had this storm a couple weeks ago, hit Georgia and Florida. It's awful this time of year. So hopefully everybody is safe, and it was good. I think the media did a great job for warning people, and it was taken quite seriously. So thank you for asking.
Yeah, I feel like there's more, I mean, for obvious reasons, there's just so much more storm coverage than ever before.
Maybe global warning?
Yeah, that's probably why. No easy way to transfer off of it, but I'm glad everyone's okay. I wanted to start sort of big picture with you. Most of your peers, I'd say, a lot of them are getting out of the media business, right? So Sherry Redstone sells, Rupert sold a few years ago, or at least out of the entertainment business. AT&T and Verizon, sort of telecom companies, got out. You seem to be investing more in media and entertainment at a time where there's a lot of anxiety and uncertainty about it. Why does it make sense for Comcast to be in the entertainment business? And what do you see that's sort of bright about the future that maybe others don't agree with?
Well, I think a broad statement like that, Larry Ellison just chose to get in. You're sponsored by AWS. There's, a complete change of who's enthusiastic and what do they bring to the party. And maybe some of those folks felt it was time to exit. We're pretty excited about the company we've got. We have, in the media part of the business, studios growing great. Some of the clips you said, I hope Wicked wins that poll, and more importantly, wins the box office. Fabulous bet by Donna and team last year. Oppenheimer, Chris Meledandri. You got Jason coming later. I'm just bummed out I'm not doing the hot wings.
Your body will thank you.
Yeah, and so, we have in Peacock a strategy, and I'm sure we'll get into it a little more, that is a growth business for us. And we've also selling our Hulu stake. So we actually will have, very little money net in streaming in terms of losses versus profits. So, each company's different. Then we also have a broadband, the majority of the company that my dad started, Comcast Cable, now really a broadband connectivity business, Wi-Fi. If you were to go back 10 years and you said, let's design with your perfect knowledge of what the world looks like today, what would be a cool company? You would say, well, I'd like to connect everybody to what we're doing, whether it's in streaming or whether it's in AI or whether it's going to be in, whatever comes next, Zoom calls, working from home. And we have the nation's most connected broadband customers. We have a converged service with wireless and broadband in more homes than AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile combined. And a lot of that content, 100 million people every quarter coming to watch Today's Show, Tonight's Show, SNL, which is fabulous as always this year. And I don't know how Lorne Michaels can do it every time, but this being such an important year, what a great first two shows. And then film and television and the stories we have. And then, of course, sports. And I'm sure we'll talk a little about that as well. So I think we have a pretty great company. And I'm more excited. This will be our 60th year. My dad founded it. This will be, and last year was the most profitable year and the best year in company's history. And, we're about to do earnings, everything. We're going to have a great year this year by all the analysts' accounts, and maybe even the best year in the company's history are right there. And so why would you not be excited?
You brought up Peacock. I'm curious. how long until Peacock is really a profitable and sustainable business on its own?
Well, first of all, we don't look at it as on its own. So I'm not going to duck your question completely, but that's not how we're running the business. We're running it as part of the media business. So take the Olympics. 87% of the viewing was on NBC or one of our cable channels. 13% was on Peacock. But together, we presented to the consumer all those choices. Every event, every athlete, every country. Mike Tirico doing 2 primetime shows in a heroic fashion, hard to...
Yeah, we have the stats here. NBCUniversal had the most viewership of any company, TV viewership at any company in August because of the Olympics.
We did it for 17 straight days. It's so hard to keep America's viewers' attention for more than 2 hours, let alone 17 days. So that was a whole company effort. And so to pick one part of the company and say, well, how's that part doing? Well, if your goal is to just be Netflix, that's a really important question. If your goal is to have a media company that, particularly in the United States, which is where most of our emphasis is to deliver sports to, I think of, Bloomberg didn't have a print business, but I was chatting with some friends from the Wall Street Journal, and they had to go from a quote, dying print business to a growing digital business. And New York Times had to do the same. And there's some people that didn't make it. USA Today may not quite get there. Philadelphia Inquirer, regional papers, tough business. We think NBC, we are going to get there, and Peacock is going to be part of how that happens. As more and more people cut the cord, more and more people will take Peacock.
But that's why people ask about the sustainability of Peacock. I get that it's part of this sort of this broader group, right? But your cable networks are the ones, right? So you need something to offset that.
And Peacock, we think this year will be the most losses we've had, even including the NBA investment that we're making. We're already improved. That's what last quarter showed.
The NBA won't hurt profitability going forward.
Well, it might theoretically in the short run, but in the long run, we're super excited and think that it's factored into what we need to spend and what we'll monetize. If you go back, we had all our content on Hulu. We bought the company. That was what NBC had committed to before we owned the company. Then Fox happened, and Disney got control of Hulu. Out an amicable way to extricate, which was taking 5 years. We didn't want to sell our Hulu stake until the end of those 5 years.
Taking more than 5 years at this point.
By a little bit. We're gonna figure out eventually the end, and we've already taken a lot of billions of dollars out off of several $100 million investment, and maybe more to come, we hope. And so when that's all said and done, we got all the content onto Peacock, but we had to start at a very late date compared to other streaming companies. So our strategy was to take all the sports we had and now make them available to people who didn't buy the bundle. We're the first ones in a way to actually do that. And then layer on all the episodes and all the seasons and all the great content that Donna's making in film, created a new set of windows. Team did a super job where some of our content is for 4 months, all of it's on Peacock. The next 10 months, it goes to either Amazon or Netflix, and then back to Peacock. Nobody had ever done that before. So we've been kind of innovating, I think, in the changing industry and the changing landscape to work for our set of assets to give us a very sustainable path to be able to say to you that our media business will be profitable, is profitable, will continue to be profitable, and I believe will grow despite the downward pressure because of the growth of Peacock.
Right. I'm wondering if you are confident in Peacock on its own, not on its own, within your company, but as a viable streaming service going forward. Why? It's been publicly reported by Bloomberg and others. You've had conversations with other companies about merging streaming services, joint ventures, that sort of thing. Paramount's certainly been out there. Why have those talks if you're a big believer in Peacock?
Well, there's always, just because you reported at Bloomberg, I'm not going to say it's accurate. But of course, if it's Bloomberg, it must be accurate. So therefore...
well, you referenced the Journal. They also reported. I feel like if both Bloomberg and the Journal are reporting something, odds are it's accurate.
Absolutely. So, and throw NBC News in there too. So in all seriousness, obviously people are going to say, here's a changing landscape. What can I do that would advance myself? So conversations are always going to happen. They happen in all businesses all the time. I think it's a tough thing to actually get executed because I'm a believer, coming from where I started my career in cable. My first job was selling HBO door to door, one of the first jobs. And we had a lot of channels. When John Malone said we're going to go to 500 channels, it kind of got laughed about. And then the internet, of course, went to infinity. So the notion that we'd have 10 streaming services doesn't intimidate me whatsoever. The technology for the consumer is the question. Can I bounce from show to show?
It's too hard to get from Netflix to Peacock to Apple
If you believe that's how it's going to be, then that's an issue. I'm coming from a world that we went from 3 channels when my dad started to 500 channels, and we had no problem doing that. And the consumer got used to it. So the question will be, can we solve that? Well, we have a technology which we've licensed to Charter, we've licensed to Rogers, we do it with Sky, we do it in Australia, we do it in South Africa, where you just talk to it and say, House of Cards, Sunday Night Football, Dodgers game, congratulations. The Phillies didn't do so well yesterday. You just go. It's just like changing channels.
Right.
Now, somebody will come along and say, well, can I buy one subscription and get all these services so I'm not out of luck? Well, that sounds like cable TV was. So I have a bias that I could see it all kind of being some form of consumer wants to go where the great content is. And if AMC makes a show, Breaking Bad, and nobody had ever watched AMC before that, perhaps, and all of a sudden they had AMC and they had Breaking Bad. That's the great community here makes the breakthrough must-have programming, whether that one day is an Olympics or one day is a show that I never knew I wanted, and word of mouth. And I'm confident that Peacock can play an important role in that, and whether we do that with others or by ourselves or in some sort of partnership, those are things that right today we're pretty happy where we're at, but we'll see. We didn't bid on Paramount. All the press wants to have us do something I don't know that we are going to do. We'll see.
Okay, I was going to take you in another direction, but you brought up M&A, so let's go and do it. You didn't bid on Paramount. The company you've been linked to most often is WBD. There's this sort of belief in the market. You want to spin out NBCUniversal, you want to merge it with Warner Bros. Discovery, you want to buy Warner, something like that. You've publicly, privately, to my understanding, been not necessarily dismissive, but said you don't think that's going to happen. Why don't you think that deal makes sense?
Well, I think, I don't want to comment on any specific deal, and you can understand why that would be the case. They're a wonderful set of assets, and David Zaslav's working really hard, trying to figure.
You're about to say doing a good job, and then you self-edited.
How can you read my mind? But in all seriousness here, they're trying to do something very different than what I just described, and therefore, I think we're going to do our thing, and we're the company we've got, and the assets, and the team, the people. You can characterize it any way you want. I think we're on a good track. And I start because I think at its heart, the company we've got started with, again, before I was there for 50 years at NBC and 100 years at Universal. But take NBC and the assets that have been created appeal to Americans. And maybe they appeal to Britain too. It's English speaking for the most part. It's relevant. 100 million consumers touch us every 90 days. Most of the country watches something from NBC Universal. And how do we get that to the digital world and monetize that with digital ads? That's what we're trying to do. And we've got a broadband business and a television business at Comcast, Xfinity. So during the Olympics, we had almost double the viewing, 2x, in the Comcast homes. Because when you turned on the TV, there was all things Olympics in our X1 guide, in our Zumo boxes. And I think that we have a playbook that works for us. Other companies are trying to chase Netflix. And you've got Netflix coming on later, done an incredible job everywhere in the world. But in the US, I think we can do an incredible job and are. And then we've got Sky in the UK, which had been doing the same kind of thing in the UK. So it kind of fits really well in our English speaking. Universal, it does globally distribute. So we set up a partnership with Paramount, Sky, Showtime. We partner with others. There's always going to be conversations around how do we remain very relevant globally. But where we have our own distribution, our own platforms, and our own set of skills, I think that's what we're focused on.
What do you think the current regulatory climate, would you be able to buy a big media company?
Look, I think that's not a reason that I would give you as an answer.
Got it.
Not to do something.
You brought up cable. There was a belief, I think, among analysts, executives for a while that there was what you'd call a floor, right? There's been a decline in the cable business, but at a certain point it would level off because a certain number of people would always want to pay for it, or would just have it, right? Like older people, whatever, sports fans, whatever it may be. The last 6 months, 12 months, it feels like there's been a little bit of a revision there where there's some discussion that maybe there isn't a floor, that it just falls to zero. When you're talking with your finance guys or strategy people, what do you see as sort of the base, the floor for cable?
So that's not actually how I think we should think, because who knows is the answer to that question. I look at it as a consumer and then trying to have a set of products that we offer the consumer that we're indifferent to the answer. So if there's many people who want to buy a bundle in video, great. We want to have the best bundle. And that's Xfinity. We have a talking remote, Emmy Award winning. We have all the content. We were the first people to put Netflix on that box. It was just as good as HBO. We could switch channels, everything you said earlier, no problem. We have, I think, the best entertainment operating system out there. At the same time, along came streaming in a much healthier way. And people said, I want to cut the cord. We make virtually the same amount of money, some cases more, if you take broadband only. Why do I say more? Well, we don't have to bill you all those extra fees, and we don't have to raise rates. And when you're unhappy about something, you call us. There's cost to doing business. Now you're buying your streaming, you're dealing directly with the content company. And we managed to get our business to where we're indifferent to the answer to that question. So I remember the first time I met Bill Gates, really sat down and had a meeting. He said, someday, this is in the 90s, the internet was just starting, you will have more data customers than you have video customers. At that point, we had 0 internet, and we had, 25 million video. Fast forward, we have 32 million broadband and half as many video. So we set up our company with fiber optics, with long-term investments to anticipate what has happened. And now are we perfect about that? Of course not. So I think there could be more decline. It could level off. YouTube TV, Hulu Live.
Is it going to hurt your soul a little bit if YouTube TV surpasses you as the biggest cable operator?
Not if they're using Xfinity broadband and watching NBC and watching Universal. We will have transitioned our company pretty carefully. We're going to, be pretty happy with the Comcast NBCUniversal we got.
You brought up internet. Internet seems to also, it's not shrinking at all. Obviously, everybody needs it. But most people now have access to internet, right? There's maybe 30, 40 million homes or people that don't because of where they live. When you're thinking about the future trajectory and growth of your business, is there a business you're not in now that you feel like you need to be to sort of be a quote unquote growth story? Or can you do it with the assets you have?
Well, obviously there are things like AI that intrigue everybody and make it fun and stimulating to want to go to work every day, or what's happening. And I love technology, and it's inspiring and scary and all things in between. So I'd start to answer that by saying, okay, go back 10 years and ask yourself what you did with the internet. And then go back to that Bill Gates moment and what were you doing 20 years ago with the internet, whatever number of years. And we were doing pictures. And then we got to Napster. And we got to, go down the list.
Right.
And now we're into 4K, and we're working from home, and we think we're done. And the way I keep score is bits per home. And if you look at the CAGR of bits per home, it's gone up 25, 30% since 1997. Every year we're doing more. We hope there are bits, but they're your bits. There's everybody in this room's bits. It's video cameras. It's hopefully healthcare.
And do you get, as that keeps growing, as it moves maybe to other devices, you feel comfortable that your company will capture enough of that?
So to name drop one other person who I think understood this way better than me. First time, or got to many times go visit with Steve Jobs to try to get an Apple box to be our box. And we were trying to merge boxes. And of course they have Apple TV, we have our box. Never actually happened. And in one of the meetings he said, well, you should give up because we're going to win that. But you should put Wi-Fi in all your boxes. And that's how you'll win. And you should be the best pipe. And he said the best dumb pipe. And I said, well, that doesn't sound very exciting to be the best dumb pipe. And we would edit that when I go home. So I went home, went to our chief technology officer and said, what's Wi-Fi? And today we have the nation's biggest Wi-Fi network. And we have more customers. And 90% of your cell phone usage, 90% is Wi-Fi.
Right.
And that's because 70% of all the bits going over the internet right now are streaming. And streaming wasn't here 10 years ago. So I sit here and say the most exciting thing about our company is what's coming in the next 10 years that happens in innovation around the world, hopefully here in America, hopefully Silicon Valley, in LA and everywhere else, Philadelphia, and that we're going to continue to have bits per home go up. And whether that's Apple Vision Pro, streaming sports is a natural. When we had one football game in America, went from CBS, NBC, and Fox, had Thursday night. And it moved to Prime. So it went from TV to streaming. The number one night in bits traveling the internet in America was Sunday night. Thank you, HBO. The entire internet moved to Thursday night with one football game. So the number one night in consumption on bits on Peacock was the single biggest night in the internet's history in America. Worked flawlessly, super proud of that moment, led us to the Olympics. I think we're just scratching the surface. All regional sports, the Dodgers games.
If you fix the regional sports network business, I will thank you.
It's going to reinvent itself in streaming, right? Where else is that going? And so more and more, that cord cutting question, which side of that are we on? Because the more it happens, the more broadband we're going to sell. The more broadband is going to be valuable to you as a consumer, the more it's going to differentiate from wireless. We have the best network. So I go back to what Jobs said. Let's be the best network. We'll edit out dumb. And let's make sure we never lose sight of that. And that's where we're investing. So again, going back to for our company, look like a winning hand, it's be on the side that you don't care what the answer is to that question. If the consumer wants to cut it, yes, that will hurt some parts of our company. But other parts of our company are going to succeed, and that's going to be, indifferent or net good.
You brought up sports. You just made a really big deal for the NBA.
So I'm told.
This is publicly announced now, no?
Oh, yeah. Very excited about it.
Two questions. One, I know the packages aren't exactly the same, but the price doubled this time, more than doubled. How do you pencil out the math on that? Because one of the criticisms that a David Zaslav would level, he's a loser in this circumstance, would be you overpaid. There's no way that those numbers make sense.
Well, we'll see, right? Who knows? He's suing to get it, so I don't think that that's a good one.
Well, he believes he'll have to pay less if he wins that lawsuit, I believe.
Okay. So you had Disney, Amazon, ourselves, and potentially those guys. And if you took it on a per game basis and adjusted One is the finals. We didn't get those. We got the semifinals. So adjusted a regular season, add it all, and get it down to some sort of game per CPM, or however you would look at it. We're all basically paying the same price. In our case, we got the most quantity, as well as some incredible quality. And so the life cycle of Peacock and where we're at, it is going to be a big driver. It's a 9-month product. It is relevant to a really growing, diverse, young audience, exactly what we want for Peacock. It fits in with right in the schedule after Sunday Night Football. We've got Olympics. We've got many other great events. And so we think this is what the market was. It's about a once every 25 years, 20 years that there's a platform change. We were in the right place at the right time. Team Mark and Rick Cordell and Mike Cavanaugh, others, fantastic job making it happen. And we really admire what the NBA is going to do, has done, and we're excited to be a partner. Couldn't be more excited.
Does that mean you're like, are you sort of out on the next big, like UFC's coming up next year? You sort of made your bet, that's not for you, or do you still have the spending to go after?
We haven't, I don't want to speak on any one. We haven't typically done that property, but we had NBA on NBC. Felt like
I know, I grew up with it.
Right, there's a real, just incredible enthusiasm at NBC Sports and across the whole company that this is going to be an engine for growth for the many, many years, and hopefully it'll be a 20, 30-year relationship or long after I'm gone. So I'm excited.
I think, unfortunately, we're about out of time, but I did want to ask you one more question because
It's always the one more question.
No, this one's easy. You brought up, I'm ending on an easy note this year. You brought up Steve Jobs, you brought up Bill Gates. When you go to like the billionaire summer camps, right? Like who's your clique? Who are...
I was helping my wife recover from knee surgery. I wasn't there, so I didn't go to any camps. It's been a great. No, it's a fun industry, right? And what happened over time, and the first time my dad and I were invited to that, we went together. We always asked to stay in the same room and just use it as a chance to like pinch ourselves that a company, when I got out of college, went to work for Comcast, we had 20 million in revenues. And this year, give or take, no guidance here, but call it 120 billion. And it's like only in America. So I think when we get to go and see the change, and what's obviously changed over the years is now the technology. Google, the first time they showed up, or Yahoo, remember Warren Buffett asking a question of Yahoo, of Jerry Yang or something like, well, tell me how you monetize. And nobody could understand. And now, of course, the world's changed. And so I think that's what has allowed our company, we've tried to partner with those and say we don't have all the answers and keep some certain sort of humility as we continue to be in a very tough business and changing and keep our enthusiasm and attract great people. And that's what we're trying to do.
Your dad started to pass the reins to you at a pretty young age, right? Have you thought about that in your circumstance at all? It was a very different company. We have great kids who are doing their own thing in life. We'll see. But Mike Cavanaugh, we've attracted people over time who I think if I'm hit by a bus, our company's in great shape. But we've been able to use the 2-tier stocks that my dad created to kind of have a stability and a long-term investor owner mentality by trying to recognize the public duty and importance of being a best-in-class company. Brian, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Lucas.
That, of course, is the head of Comcast, Brian Roberts, with our Lucas Shaw. I mean, this is someone where the media business, right, cable business has certainly been in
decline, I think it's fair to say.
Well, but also something
where's the floor? That's what Lucas asked. Where's the floor of this business?
But he grew up in it, right? And he's been part of the changes. If you think about it, he came to Comcast back in 1990. That's over a quarter of a century ago. That company that he now leads has transformed dramatically.
Well, just think about what the landscape looked like then when Comcast was started by his father. He said there were 3 channels out there, then there were 500 channels. And now you have people using the smallest screens that they carry around in their pockets each and every day to consume more content than they're consuming on the big screen.